Imagine a little girl, very young. She holds a golden ball in her hands, and sunlight plays in her hair. She laughs, carefree, spinning at the edge of a forest clearing. In front of her, a deep, dark well, hidden beneath the roots of an ancient tree. She tosses the ball high and catches it over and over again, like she's playing with fate. But then, a mistake. The ball slips, it falls into the black water, and with it, something else disappears. Her sense of safety. From the depth, something rises, a frog, green, wet, strange. It stares up at her and speaks. Not a croak, a human voice. It doesn't ask for gold. It doesn't ask for a crown. It asks for something deeper. To sit beside her, to share her plate, to sleep in her bed. The girl is in tears, but she agrees. Then runs away, thinking she's fooled a foolish creature. Most people stop here. After all, it's just a fairy tale, a dream, a nonsense story for children. But stop for a moment. What if it's not? What if this strange story isn't just folklore? What if it's the echo of something ancient? A ritual, a memory, a myth that survived for thousands of years in disguise. A time when water was the boundary between worlds, when gods came as animals, when fear was part of growing up and touching the unknown was not a curse, but a revelation. What if the frog is not a monster, but a messenger? Not a joke, but a reminder of something we almost forgot, something still watching us from the deep. Thousands of years ago, none of this was strange. It was part of life, and maybe we still carry this myth inside us, not as it was, but as it became. So if you think you know this fairy tale, maybe you're wrong. There was a time when wishes still came true, when the world had not yet split into possible and impossible, when forests whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen. In those days, there lived a king, powerful and strict, and he had a youngest daughter, a girl whose face could stop the sun. When morning light touched her skin, it paused, as if enchanted. Even the birds in the trees fell silent, just to look at her. She grew up in marble halls, on golden carpets, surrounded by books, but what she loved most was the forest. Deep inside it, there was an old ash tree leaning over a well. The place was quiet, ancient, forgotten. Nobody asked about it, but that was where she always went. She brought her golden ball, not just a toy, but something precious, almost magical. She tossed it high into the air and caught it again, as if she were playing with fate. Each throw felt like a spell, each catch like a prayer. But one day, she missed. The ball slipped from her hands, flashed in the sun, and disappeared. No splash, no echo, just silence. The dark water swallowed it whole. The girl froze. Then she began to cry. Tears rolled down her face, so many that even the trees seemed to listen. The forest grew still. The air turned heavy, like before a storm. And then, a voice. Rough, strange, not quite human. "Why are you crying, princess?" She stepped back and looked into the well. There, staring up at her, was a frog. Green, wet, ugly, but its eyes held something sharp, something kind, something terrifying. "I can bring back your ball," the frog said. "But you must promise me something." The girl nodded through tears. "Anything," she whispered. "My necklace, my crown, any treasure, just give it back." But the frog shook its head. "I don't want your riches," it said. "I want to sit beside you, eat from your plate, drink from your cup, and sleep in your bed." The girl trembled, just for a moment. She was too young to know what danger can hide behind strange promises. She thought it was a game, a silly joke. Smiling through her tears, she said, "Yes, of course, whatever you want." But she didn't know. Some games come with a price, and at the well where wishes still come true, there is always a cost, a deal that couldn't be undone. The golden ball came back. The frog kept her word. She rose from the black water, holding the treasure in her mouth, and laid it gently at the princess's feet. The girl snatched it with joy. She didn't even look at the strange creature. No thank you, no goodbye, only laughter and quick footsteps. back to the palace, to the light, to the safe world where monsters don't show up for dinner. She thought it was over, that a promise made in tears could stay at the bottom of a well. That words spoken in fear had no power. But old deals have their own rules. They are never forgotten, never forgiven, and never disappear. When night fell and the palace grew quiet, there was a knock on her door, soft but sticky, as if a wet paw touched the wood. Then came a voice, hoarse, raspy, and strangely familiar. "Princess, youngest daughter of the king, let me in." The girl turned pale. Her hands shook as she shut the shutters and crawled under her blanket. But the voice came again, and again. She had no choice but to confess. To her father, to the king. He didn't get angry, he didn't laugh. He looked at her long and hard, and said one thing. "You gave your word, and a promise is a matter of honor, even to a creature you fear, especially then." The frog was let in. She entered slowly, calmly, as if she belonged. She hopped onto a chair, then onto the table, sat down in front of the princess, at her plate, and began to eat, from her spoon, from her cup. Each sip sounded like a slap. The princess didn't touch her food. She just watched, frozen, like a bird before the strike. But the worst was yet to come. When the meal ended and the girl rose to leave, the frog said, "I'm tired. I want to go to bed. With you." The room spun. No, not that. Her bed was sacred, clean, warm, her safe place. And this creature, cold, slimy, with button eyes, wanted to lie next to her. She cried, like she did at the well, but this time no one came to help. Her father only repeated, "You must do what you promised." With trembling fingers, she picked up the frog, between two fingers, like something rotten, sticky, wrong. She carried it through the silent halls, climbed the stairs to her room, and not knowing what else to do, she threw it, far, into the corner. Let it stay there, let it stay away. But the frog was stubborn. Slowly, inevitably, it crept forward. "I'm tired," it said. "I want to lie beside you. Let me, or I will tell your father." And in that moment, something snapped inside the girl. Or maybe something woke up. Anger, disgust, fear, maybe all of it. She jumped up, grabbed the frog, not like a cursed thing, but like an enemy, like an intruder in the very core of her world. And with a fury no one thought she had, she threw it against the wall. "There's your rest, vile creature," she screamed. The moment everything changes, silence. A sharp stillness in the air, like the whole world held its breath. The frog hit the wall with a soft, wet thud, and fell. The princess stepped back, shocked by what she had done. She didn't mean to. Or did she? Was it only disgust that moved her hand, or something older, deeper? As if her body remembered what her mind did not yet know. And then movement. First, a shimmer in the air, like heat dancing above stone. Then, a flash. For 1 second, the room lit up from the inside. And where the creature had fallen, slimy, green, cold, now stood a young man, tall, alive. His hands trembled, like they had just escaped another body. His eyes were filled with confusion, and gratitude, and sorrow. He was beautiful, not like in paintings, not like in fairy tales, but with the beauty of something real, fragile, warm, human. The air around him felt different, softer, lighter. He looked at the princess and smiled. Just a little, as if he wasn't sure he was allowed to. "You freed me," he said. His voice was calm, deep, steady. "Many years ago, a witch cursed me. I was to stay a frog until someone made a promise, and broke it. Not a kiss, not pity, a promise, followed by hatred. Only true anger, born from fear and honesty, could break the spell." The princess said nothing. She still couldn't believe it. Her fingers were shaking. Her heart pounded in her throat. It had all happened too fast, too strange, and somehow too familiar, like she had seen it in a dream, or heard it in an old story, or carried it deep inside her without knowing. The next morning, the palace was filled with music. Trumpets played, Flowers were hung. The courtiers whispered. The prince had returned. The heir was saved. The line would continue. They were married. There were gowns, songs, smiles. Everything looked perfect. But when she looked at him, her eyes didn't hold joy. They held a question. What was this really? Salvation? Or the beginning of something she did not yet understand? The fairy tale was over, or maybe it had just begun. Why is there no kiss in this story? Let's stop for a moment. You noticed it too, didn't you? There's no kiss, no gentle touch of lips, no tender moment where everything changes because of love at first sight. Not even a hint of that scene. The one modern fairy tales love to use as the grand finale. And that's no accident. In the original version, written down by the Brothers Grimm in the early 19th century, there was no kiss, none, no romance, no affection, just a princess, a frog, a promise, and anger. The kind of raw anger that, in the end, sets someone free. So when did the kiss appear? The answer is simple. Later. Much later. Mostly in the late 19th or early 20th century, when fairy tales were rewritten for children, when the world grew softer, more afraid of pain, when ancient rituals got covered in glitter, and publishers decided it was better to swap rage for love, to turn violence into sweetness, to make the story safe. But why? Because a kiss is easier, cleaner, more acceptable. A frog that turns into a prince after a kiss, that's a story you can tell at bedtime. But a girl who feels disgust, fear, and then explodes in fury that breaks a curse, that's no longer a bedtime story. That's something wilder, older, realer. Because this tale, at its core, was never about love. At least not the kind we're used to. There is no wedding dream, no prince waiting. What we have is a deal, a boundary, a test, and a contact with something not human and never meant to be. This is a story about meeting the unknown, the other, the thing that makes your skin crawl. And only when the girl doesn't just accept it, but refuses to submit, the transformation happens, not from kindness, but from strength, not from affection, but from reaching a breaking point. This is not a story where kisses turn frogs into princes. This is a story where truth is freed by anger, where change doesn't come from love, but from honesty. And maybe that makes it far more real than we ever realized. From Germany to Scotland, the frog is everywhere. The tale of the frog prince was never alone. It's more like a river fed by many streams. And if we look at a map of Europe, we'll see the same creature, half frog, half mystery, appearing again and again. From the southern valleys to the misty northern coasts, from eastern woods to far western islands, always different, always the same, with one goal, to strike a strange bargain. In one ancient version from Central Europe, there's no golden ball at all. The girl doesn't lose a toy. She finds a murky, stagnant spring. The water is foul, undrinkable. Then the frog appears, not pretty, not kind, but it speaks. I can make the water clear, I can make it alive, but in return, the same request: closeness, unity, acceptance. Not of the body, but of the soul. The girl doesn't fully understand, but she nods anyway. Now shift to Scotland, 16th century. A legend from the edge of the known world, a sacred well. Beyond it, people believed, were lands that belonged to neither gods nor men. A girl walks there alone, through woods and fog, to save her dying mother. She's not looking for treasure, she's looking for healing. And just when all hope fades, he appears, the frog. He offers her water, a cure, a chance, but the price is the same. You will be my wife. Her older sisters are horrified. Marry a toad? Never. But the youngest, the quiet one, the dreamer, says yes. She accepts the deal. He gives her the water. Her mother recovers. But the story doesn't end with wedding bells. And there is no kiss. Where modern fairy tales fade out with music and champagne, this one ends with an axe. The frog is beheaded. Cruel, brutal, maybe. But in that moment, the transformation happens. Only through violence, whether symbolic or real, Does the frog become what he always was? A prince under a curse, or something else entirely? And here's the real question. Why? Why isn't the kiss enough? Why not just say yes and break the spell? Because these tales follow a different code. This isn't about love, it's about initiation, about crossing a boundary, about the destruction of the line between the human and the inhuman, so that something new can be born. If these stories echo from Germany to Scotland, from Brittany to the Carpathians, they must carry something deeper than plot. They hold a formula, ancient, buried, but never lost. Why always the well? Why a well? Why, again and again, do these stories begin at the edge of dark, deep water? Why not by a river or a mountain or a sacred shrine? Because a well is not just a hole in the ground, not just a source of water. In ancient thought, it was a gateway, an opening between worlds, a place where the fabric of reality thins, where the border between here and there becomes almost transparent. A well is not something you look into. It's something that looks back. Long ago, people didn't draw water with indifference. They spoke to it, whispered over it, lowered the bucket, and paused, as if waiting. Would it return? Would the water answer? Sometimes they left offerings, not just flowers, not just coins. At the sacred spring of Finan Sagan Far in Wales, archaeologists found swords, brooches, wedding rings. In Denmark, entire bodies, lowered into peat springs with care and ceremony. All of it, gifts, sacrifices, given to something that lives beneath the surface. And who lives there? That's where it gets interesting. The well is not just a border between life and death. It's the line between what we know and what we can't understand. Water, especially dark and still, held in a close space, was seen as a mirror to other worlds. Sometimes you saw your reflection. Sometimes something else looked back. Not your face, but something hidden, something deep. In fairy tales, the girl doesn't just lose an object. She loses something sacred, a golden ball, a ring, healing water. And what returns it is never human. It's always something from the other side, something bound to the well. The well is not background. It's an invitation, a test, a symbol of passage, from childhood to adulthood, from safety to danger, from innocence to power. And the one who dares to look into its depths must pay. That's why the story can't begin anywhere else, because real stories don't begin in the castle or at home. They begin where the world you knew ends, at the well, when a sacrifice becomes a marriage. In Slavic tales, the ones whispered in the dim light of log cabins, with firewood crackling and a hand making the sign of the cross, water was alive, not in a poetic sense, truly alive. It breathed, it remembered, it chose, and sometimes it took. One figure returned again and again in those stories, the water spirit, the Vodyanoi, green, slimy, with webbed fingers, a beard of pondweed, and eyes like deep black pools. He lived in silence, in still ponds, in forbidden wells, in dark corners of lakes no one dared to speak about. At night, they said, he could be seen sitting on a stump, combing his algae-like hair, and sometimes not seen at all, just felt a gaze from the water, from below, where no one returns. People believed he kept the souls of the drowned, stored them in glass jars, hid them in underwater chambers, or kept them close inside his coat. These spirits could offer help, but never for free. In one old tale, as haunting as a dream, a woman goes to a forbidden spring. Her child is sick. No healer can save him. The old women whisper, "There's water that heals, but it's not from this world." The woman walks alone, through forest, through fear, through whispering dusk. She finds the spring, black, without reflection. She prays, she weeps, she promises anything. And then, he comes. The water stirs, bubbles rise. From the depths, the Vodyanoi, not a man, not quite a monster, something in between. He looks at her and speaks. "I will give you the water. Your child will live. But you? will return. You will become my wife." She nods. Tears, hope, terror, all blending. In that moment, she would say yes to anything. She takes the water. She runs. She saves the child. And she tells herself, "It wasn't real, just a vision. I promised nothing." But a promise made in the presence of water is never forgotten. Days pass, then months, sometimes years. She tries not to remember, but one day he returns, not always in the same form. Sometimes as a stream that suddenly flows through her house, sometimes as a strange visitor, quiet, pale, with eyes like glass, sometimes as misfortune, drought, illness, grief. She hides, she prays, she seals the doors, but water finds every crack, every weakness, every way in. And that is when the sacrifice becomes a marriage, not because she wants it, but because the deal was made, not with the devil, but with something older, with the element itself, with a force that does not forgive being forgotten. These stories are eerily alike. In each one, a woman, desperation, water, help, and the price. They sound like legends, but they feel like rituals, not random tales, but structure, a pattern, an old formula where saving almost always means surrender, completely, and sometimes forever. Not just fear, it's a ritual. Yes, these stories are frightening, especially if you really listen. If you stop hiding behind the easy phrase, "It's just a fairy tale." A girl, darkness, a creature that's not quite human, a promise made through tears and revulsion. And then, a change, as if she's crossed some invisible line. But behind the fear, there is no chaos. There is structure behind the disgust. There is no randomness, but design. These stories don't follow fantasy. They follow the rules of ancient ritual. Think about it. In every version, the girl meets the other, a being that frightens her, disgusts her, makes her want to run, and yet it offers help. She hesitates, but agrees. She makes a deal, breaks a taboo, enters a union, and then she either passes through a transformation or disappears. Either she becomes something new or she loses everything. It's not just the Frog Prince, it's Beauty and the Beast, where the girl must love the monster before he becomes a man. It's the Indian tale of the Snake Prince, who turns into a man only at night. It's the Nordic East of the Sun, West of the Moon, where the girl breaks the rules, loses him, and must earn her way back. The same story appears across continents, languages, and ages, always dressed differently, always speaking the same truth. This isn't a sweet tale. It's a guide, a rite of passage, a map of becoming. And if you think it only lives in pagan folklore, look to the Bible. In Genesis, the wives of the patriarchs, Rebecca, Rachel, Zipporah, all meet their future husbands at a well, at water, at the crossing point, where choices are made, where unions are formed, where fate begins. That's not a coincidence. It's the same archetypal scene, wrapped in sacred language. Water as the threshold, man as the unknown, woman as the one who chooses, or consents. And in that choice, there is not submission. There is transformation. Is it scary? Yes, but not because it's about monsters. Because deep inside these stories is something we no longer talk about. Something society has forgotten, or wants to forget. And yet the stories continue, in books, in films, in dreams, because rituals are easy to forget. But the need to go through them never disappears. The Beast Groom, a myth that's 4,000 years old. Folk tales rarely appear by chance. And if a story shows up again and again, in India, in Norway, in Persia, in the Balkans, in Siberia, it means something deeper is hiding underneath. Not just imagination, but a formula. A structure our ancestors knew instinctively. Like the rhythm of breath, scholars gave it a dry, technical name: the animal as bridegroom. In the International Tale Index, it's labeled Type 425. But behind that number is one of the oldest stories known to humankind. A story where a girl, human, joins with something that is not. And that union doesn't destroy her, It transforms her. It gives her a new form. In 2016, researchers at the University of Lisbon made a stunning discovery. Using phylogenetic methods, the same tools used in biology to trace species evolution, they studied fairy tale patterns across the world and found that the beast groom motif stretches back more than 4,000 years, to a time before writing, when stories traveled by firelight, from mother to daughter, from an old priestess to a wide-eyed child. This myth was born in the Proto-Indo-European age, when people lived close to the earth, close to death, close to fear, and they believed power wasn't about separating from nature, but merging with it, sometimes through blood, sometimes through ritual, sometimes through marriage. Union with the non-human wasn't seen as taboo, it was a right, because the other, the beast, the spirit, the demon, the god, carried something the human did not: instinct, sacred knowledge, a force beyond death. And when a woman agreed to that union, she wasn't just submitting, she was transforming, becoming a bridge between worlds, something entirely new. That's why in these stories, the girl is always afraid at first. She resists, rejects, but then she accepts. And only then does the real transformation begin, for her and for the creature. That's why the Frog Prince is not just a fairy tale. It's a ritual matrix. Our bodies remember it, even if our minds forget. It echoes through Beauty and the Beast, the snake bridegroom, the Greek myth of Psyche and Eros, the Nordic tale of the white bear. It lives in our stories, in our films, in our dreams. Because this tale isn't fiction, it's memory, ancient, and still alive, when a god comes in a beast's skin. The ancient world didn't divide beings into human and non-human, the way we do now. Boundaries were softer. The lines were blurred. A god could speak through wind, could arrive in the body of an animal, could lie beside you, not as a man, but as an eagle, a bull, a serpent. And that wasn't horrifying. It was powerful. In Greek mythology, Zeus, the king of gods, came to women again and again in animal form. To Leda, he appeared as a swan, white, fragile, shining, but every feather carried the weight of divine force. To Europa, a golden bull, radiant, majestic, who carried her across the sea to where a new world would begin. To Danae, not even flesh, but a stream of light. Yet even light is still a shape, a form, a presence. In India, the gods take other shapes. There are the Nagas, serpent beings who live in underwater palaces, noble, magical, wise. When a girl marries a Naga, it is not a curse, it's a union with something deep and ancient. That bond doesn't destroy her, it awakens her. In ancient Egypt, the goddess Heket had the head of a frog. Yes, the same frog. Cold skin, wide eyes, wet hands. But she wasn't a monster. She was sacred, a protector of birth, water, and life. Her image was carved into charms placed in cradles. Her name was whispered during labor. She didn't frighten, she saved. So why does the divine come as an animal? Because the beast is older than words. It doesn't speak like humans, but it understands the language of the earth. It doesn't lie, doesn't flatter. It holds essence, purity, truth. When a god wears a beast's skin, it's not a disguise, it's the opposite. It's the mask being removed. And when a woman lies beside such a being, it's not horror, it's initiation. A sacred act where human meets non-human, and something new is born. Not always a child, sometimes knowledge, power, awakening. In the modern world, this sounds wild, strange, too pagan. But in ancient cultures, it was holy. So now imagine, a girl playing beside a well, a frog asking to sleep with her, fear, disgust, a promise, anger, transformation. What if that's not a fairy tale? What if it's a faint echo of the old myth, the ancient rite, where the god comes once more in beastly form, waiting to be recognized, to be accepted, to be joined. And then, the real magic begins. Marriage to a goddess, as a ritual of power, Sometimes fairy tales seem strange, sometimes disturbing. But when we look into real ancient rituals, one thing becomes clear. The tale is the soft version. The sacred was once terrifying and necessary. Power, like magic, demanded a sacrifice, and sacrifice always meant contact with the other. In the 12th century, a Norman chronicler named Gerald of Wales described a ritual that, by modern standards, sounds wild. It was an old Irish ceremony, a rite of kingship. To be recognized as the true ruler, a man had to do more than wear a crown. A white mare was brought before him, not just any horse, a sacred creature, a symbol of land, fertility, and the goddess of sovereignty herself. She wasn't just shown, she had to be joined with. Physically, the man lay with the mare, reenacting a ritual marriage. Then the mare was sacrificed. Her body was boiled. From the broth, a bath was made. The future king stepped into it, bathed in it, drank from it, as if tasting the blood of the land. Horrifying, yes, but not meaningless. This was the oldest language, the oldest contract. A union, not with a woman, but with Ireland itself, with her spirit, with her body. The mare was not seen as a victim. She was the goddess made flesh. A bride who could not be conquered. Only accepted. And only the one who passed this rite was worthy to rule. Union with the other, the animal, the inhuman, the sacred, opened the door to true power, but not political power, not crowns or armies. This was the power of the land, of the ancestors, of the world itself, and the man who crossed that threshold returned transformed, not just a man, but a vessel, a bridge, a sovereign touched by the divine. This motif is everywhere, in tales of men marrying frogs, she-bears, spirits, in myths of gods who come as bulls, eagles, stallions, in rituals where power is not inherited, but earned, through sacred marriage with the earth. So the animal's body is not horror. It is symbol, it is the door, and the one who dares to enter it becomes something ancient, something vast, something no ordinary man can ever claim to be. This is not about a kiss. This is about power, the kind that does not come from the sword, but from union with what lies beyond the edge of the human world. We are the children of those unions. When we hear a story about a girl marrying a serpent or a prince wearing the skin of a beast, we usually think it's a metaphor, a symbol, an exaggeration. But for many cultures around the world, it wasn't a metaphor. It was memory, a way to explain where we came from. In Siberia, Africa, North and South America, India, Polynesia, there were clans and tribes who traced their origins not to human heroes, not to gods in human form, but to animals, literally, not as symbols, as blood, as ancestry. The Yakuts of Siberia believed they descended from a woman and a celestial eagle. In some Buryat and Tungus clans, the founding ancestor was a serpent, not just a reptile, but a spirit crossing between worlds. Among Native American peoples, wolves, bears, ravens, these were not mascots. They were forefathers, beings from whom you were born, beings you still carry inside you. The Zulus told of ancestors who married spirits in the shape of leopards or antelope. Aboriginal Australians spoke of children conceived when a woman was visited in a dream by a totemic animal. And in China, some families still believe they are descended from dragons. That's why the beast in the myth is not a monster. It's an ancestor. It may be terrifying, strange, inhuman, but it is kin. Because somewhere, in the deep past, there was a union, a real one, complex, fearful, and sacred. For these cultures, the idea that humans are separate, above nature, would make no sense. Humans were not above. They were between. We are the result of a meeting, a crossing, a hybrid, born from flesh and spirit, from girl and beast, from the earthly and the beyond. So the question, where do we come from once, had a different answer. Not from clay, not from a rib, but from a union, from a marriage, from a pact with something that speaks differently, breathes differently, looks at the world with eyes that aren't ours. And yet, in them, we recognize ourselves. We are the children of those unions, and maybe somewhere deep inside, we still remember. Maybe that's why we're drawn to stories where a human meets a beast and doesn't kill it, but joins it. Because that's not fantasy, it's a return to the beginning, when a love story becomes a creation myth. In the version of The Frog Prince we know best, it ends with romance, a kiss, a miracle, a wedding. But there is another version, older, stranger, and far more unsettling. In that one, there is no kiss. The princess, pushed to the edge, grabs the frog in disgust and terror and throws it against the wall. In some tellings, she casts it into the fire. In others, she tears off its skin. Sometimes, she cuts off its head, and only then comes the transformation. It sounds violent, barbaric, maybe. But this is where the ancient truth lies, because in the oldest myths, new life rarely comes from tenderness. More often, it comes through destruction, through pain, through death. Across many cultures, the act of creation was never gentle. It was sacrifice, dismemberment, loss. In Sumerian myth, the goddess Inanna lies with the shepherd god Dumuzi. Their sacred union ends with his death. Only through that death can fertility return. Only after the offering can the new season begin. In Babylonian myth, the creation of the world is even more brutal. The universe is not born from light, but from a body, the body of Tiamat, the primal mother, the first chaos. The god Marduk slays her, slices her in two. From her ribs he shapes the sky, from her eyes, the rivers. From her breasts, the mountains, from her tail, the Milky Way. The world we live in is a broken body, beautiful, terrible, both, but undeniably mythic. Now come back to the frog. What if she isn't just a character, not just a cursed prince waiting for love? What if she's something older, a vessel, a water being, a night spirit, a creature born from earth and fear? And what if her destruction isn't cruelty, but ritual, the breaking of a shell, the tearing of form, so that meaning can come through, so that something beyond human can be revealed? What if the frog's body is a threshold, and to cross it, you don't kiss, you break? What if rage, disgust, rupture, that is the act of creation? Not a fairy tale ending, but a metaphysical explosion. Then this story isn't about growing up. It isn't a marriage allegory. It's cosmology, a myth of how light comes from darkness, how power rises from fear, how recognition is born from repulsion, how something living emerges only after something has been destroyed. And maybe that's why this story is still with us, because deep down, we know, before creation, there is always destruction. Before the miracle, a choice. And only through fear, pain, and rupture do we step into something greater. The Frog Prince is not about love. It's about myth, about memory, about the very beginning. What if this isn't a fairy tale? We're used to thinking of the Frog Prince as a story for children. Funny, a little odd. With a moral about honesty and keeping your word. A bedtime tale read without much thought. But the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just a children's story, it's a door. A narrow passage between worlds, hidden beneath the mask of simple storytelling. This is not a story about love, not even about magic. It's a ritual, an initiation, and a